Jake Paul's attorney says he was out of state and not at his Calabasas home during that raid today. The FBI says they're investigating allegations of criminal acts. Today, YouTube star Jake Paul is making headlines after an FBI raid at his home in Calabasas. Sky 5 was over the scene Wednesday morning as federal agents entered Paul's home in a gated community off Mulholland Highway. 24 feds, some in tactical gear, could be seen carrying evidence from the property, including several firearms. After the search, a SWAT team was seen leaving in a procession of law enforcement vehicles.
That was the moment everything pivoted. The shift from fighter to operator, from throwing punches to applying pressure, from pure competition to full control of the narrative. And narrative control only works when everyone else stays silent. Threats began circulating, statements grew carefully worded, and the whole situation was dressed up as standard business. But standard business doesn't usually follow a knockout with a raid. And if you believe that timing was just a coincidence, then there's a bridge out there waiting for you to buy it.
At what point did you start to take your foot off the gas just a little bit because you noticed he was tiring out?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely a bit. You know, I wanted to give the fans a show, but I didn't want to hurt someone that didn't need to be hurt.
Did you carry Mike?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. Yeah, like there was a point where, you know, I was just like, okay, he's not really engaging back. And so I don't know if he's tired or whatever. And I could just tell, you know, his age was showing a little bit. And I just have so much respect for him. And that like violence war thing between us, like after he slapped me, I wanted to, you know, be aggressive and take him down and knock him out and all that stuff. But that kind of went away as the rounds.
Within days, the visuals shifted from gloves to gates, from packed arenas to aerial shots. And the moment federal jackets entered the frame, the story stopped being entertainment. Even loyal fans felt that hollow drop in their stomachs, because phrases like criminal acts don't mix well with glossy brand slogans. The louder the denials became, the more the whispers spread, that someone tried to run, and rumors like that don't survive without a reason. I keep cycling through the same nightmare sequence. The mismatches, the choreography, the testing dodges, the demolition by a real professional, the broken jaw, the flexing of legal power, the sudden silence, and now the searches. Each piece on its own can be explained away, but together they form a map, and maps usually lead somewhere ugly. And I don't think we've reached the worst room yet. Not even close.
Paul versus Mike Tyson was 100% scripted. Mike Tyson repeatedly bit his boxing glove throughout the fight. When fights are scripted, fighters do weird gestures to signal that they're hurt. It's very possible Mike Tyson was biting on his glove to tell Jake Paul to calm down. Now, if that's not enough proof that this fight was scripted, in the middle of the fight, Mike Tyson is literally talking to Jake.
So no, this isn't over. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise, because when systems fail, careers don't end cleanly, they unravel. And unraveling means more leaks, more names, and more jaw-dropping moments that completely rewrite how the last 5 years are remembered. Right now, there's still too much missing, too many sealed lips, and too much smoke in the air, with a next update capable of dropping at any second and flipping everything again. Stay sharp because something is about to blow. This story already carries a broken jaw, a federal raid, and a career flatlining in real time. And now we rewind because you need to see how it all detonated. From whispers to warrants in a blink, when none of this was ever supposed to happen like this. The speed of the collapse is the story, the kind that makes you check your phone twice and say, "Nah, this can't be real," because the final image isn't a highlight or a belt. It's silence, sirens, and a name that suddenly sounds past tense. Blink now, and you'll miss the moment everything flips again.
Fight because of the weight differences, the weight difference in there. I only know one man that'll do the weight difference like that, and that's the Bronze Bomber. You know, for me, in my opinion, I think it's scripted a little bit because, you know, of the weight difference, and you know, Joshua is a former, you know, champion, and also, you know, he's current, he's active. You know, I mean, this is going to be the first time that we see Paul, you know, fighting an active fighter. You know what I mean? We seen the Mike Tyson, that was all fun, that was cute, you know what I'm saying? It's fun and games and stuff, but now you're dealing with a real professional, you know.
Rewind to the day the loss hit like a meteor, when everyone tried to pass it off as just another fight night, because the real shock wasn't the knockout, it was what came after. That cold prickle when fans stop arguing and start agreeing, The uneasy pause where sarcasm turns into curiosity and curiosity hardens into dread. When a demolition looks too clean and the excuses don't land, the questions don't disappear, they multiply. That's when the ground starts shifting beneath your feet and you don't even realize it yet. At first, people laughed off the rumors, and you probably did too because it's easy to mock conspiracies when the machine keeps winning. But then the patterns refused to stay quiet. The timing felt wrong, the behavior felt off, and suddenly you're rewatching footage not for punches but for tells, asking yourself a dangerous question. What if this wasn't chaos at all but control? Because when control collapses, it's louder than any upset. And this was getting loud fast.
The fight into this round, you need to carry him for X amount of rounds. You need to do your part to get it into the 5th, 6th, or whatever.
Absolutely no way ever. I mean, if you look at a couple of the right hands that AJ missed with in the first couple of rounds, like they would have done the same job on Jake's jaw if they would have landed. And Jake did very well to avoid them. So I always said going into the fight, AJ's not the kind of guy that's going to come out like a train, just start swinging away. He's going to take his time. And that's what he did. You know, the fight definitely went a few more rounds than anticipated from Anthony. But it's like, even now, it's like, yeah, it was definitely a fix. Some guy commented today on one of my posts, yeah, it was definitely a fix. I go, you do know that he's broken his jaw in two.
Here's where it gets uncomfortable because skepticism didn't creep in. It sprinted, dragging receipts, leaks, breakdowns, and whispers that lined up a little too cleanly to ignore. When something starts predicting reality before it actually happens, curiosity turns into paranoia, because either someone got impossibly lucky or someone knew something ahead of time. And if someone knew, who else did? And who's lying right now as you're hearing this? Then the so-called script hit the timeline and everything shifted from debate to danger as predictions matched moments, fatigue matched rounds, and outcomes mirrored the whispers. Even if you tried to brush it off, your brain wouldn't cooperate, because coincidence doesn't repeat with rhythm. And rhythm is choreography. And choreography mixed with gambling draws a line nobody wants to cross, except maybe someone already did. That's when the chill really sets in.
Jake Paul's California mansion has been raided by the FBI. Multiple news organizations report. You can see in this aerial footage agents in uniform outside his home in Calabasas.
His boxing career.
People think I do steroids and all this shit, so I have a plan. Because I think it's fucking bizarre. That's like the only excuse they can come up with is like rigged fights. Jake Paul does steroids. So after boxing, I'm gonna do a cycle of steroids to show people what Jake Paul on steroids.
Watch the ring again and tell me it feels normal, because normal fights don't come with coded gestures, whispered clinches, or referees who sound like they're cueing a scene change. Maybe it sounds like I'm reaching, but reaching doesn't explain why the same strange signals keep surfacing when the lights are brightest. I keep circling back to the feeling that there's one detail we still haven't been told. One missing piece that will make all of this snap into focus, and it's coming. Then came the real test, the one you can't style your way out of. The moment when pedigree steps in without asking permission. When a legitimate champion walks through the ropes, the illusion has only two options: evolve or explode. What followed wasn't competitive tension, it was exposure, because patience from a killer isn't mercy. It's measurement, and when the measuring ended, bones broke and narratives shattered.
Any talk of that sort, of anything to do with the fight being anything but a real fight that has exactly the same situation as any professional fight, and that's exactly the same thing here for the Anthony Joshua fight. It's just beyond mind-blowing that people would think that. Anthony Joshua was on record saying that if he didn't finish him in the first round, that would be disappointing, that it would be a failure. The narrative changed as we got closer to fight night and obviously post-fight, and I understand why, but they were pretty adamant it would take max 2 rounds to knock out Jake Paul.
This is where the money cranks the volume to maximum, because once bets pile up, lines start moving, and millions ride on a single outcome, the sport stops being just a sport. It becomes a legal minefield where every odd moment suddenly matters. Every wink, every nod starts to look radioactive. And if you're still telling yourself this is nothing, ask why the temperature changed overnight. Why everyone suddenly began choosing their words so carefully, like they knew something was about to crack. The defense phase was revealing, not because it convinced anyone, but because it sounded afraid. leaning on investigations as proof instead of denying the premise outright, which is like claiming you didn't rob the bank because the cops would have caught you. That logic only holds until the sirens actually arrive, and when they do, the room goes silent. And that silence is speaking volumes right now. There's another piece people are skimming past, and they shouldn't. The body doesn't lie the way brands do. Sudden size without speed loss, recovery without decline, selective testing choices. These aren't just rumors, they're red flags that stack. And when you avoid the brightest lights, you invite shadows. I keep hearing there's one medical detail still sealed that would completely change how the last year is understood. Just wait.
On Jake going 6 rounds with AJ.
You know, the fact that he did that, it was good because, you know, we didn't think it was going to go 6 rounds. We thought it was going to go 2. So the fact that he made 6 rounds is an accomplishment for Jake Paul.
Was there anything that stuck out with you from the fight?
Yeah, really, who was in better shape? I thought that Joshua was in great shape compared to, you know, Jake Paul because he was running around the ring.
When the knockout landed, it wasn't just a punch, it felt like a verdict because true domination strips away ambiguity. And ambiguity is the oxygen that spin survives on. Once that oxygen is gone, the truth closes in fast, so fast that even the toughest persona has to acknowledge damage. Real damage, the kind that needs surgery, recovery time, and a long list of explanations. But excuses don't heal legacies. They only pause the clock while something else builds momentum behind the curtain. On a human level, I almost feel bad for Jake Paul, almost because he built something massive and trusted it too deeply. And trust without restraint turns into entitlement, and entitlement doesn't prepare you for a moment when the applause suddenly stops. When the noise dies, all that's left is the sound of your own footsteps echoing in an empty room. People keep asking if he can come back, and sure, anyone can technically come back, but come back as what? A fighter, a promoter, a cautionary tale. Because once credibility cracks, every move is filtered through suspicion. And that's a brutal way to exist in a sport where respect is currency. I don't think Anthony Joshua ended Jake Paul with a right hand alone. I think he exposed the gap between entertainment boxing and real boxing, a gap that can't be patched with thumbnails or marketing. Once fans see that gap clearly, they don't forget it, no matter how many edits you throw at them. Right now everything feels paused but tense, like the air before another punch lands, and whether that punch is legal, reputational, or financial doesn't really matter because the direction is obvious. Momentum has shifted away from Jake Paul, and momentum is the one thing you can't lawyer your way back into. I'm watching this closely not because I want someone to fall, but because moments like this redefine eras, and whatever comes next, indictment or not, apology or not, the Jake Paul experiment has already altered combat sports forever, and the aftershocks aren't finished yet. I keep thinking about Jake Paul the person, not the brand, not the thumbnails, not the numbers, but the actual human who decided at some point that bending reality was easier than respecting it, because you don't wake up one day with federal agents at your gate by accident. Anyone calling this bad luck is lying to themselves, because patterns like this don't form unless choices were made repeatedly, confidently, arrogantly, with a belief that the system would never bite back. And yeah, names matter now. Jake Paul, Logan Paul, Nikki Sabedarian, Alex Spiro, Eddie Hearn, Anthony Joshua, Mike Tyson. These aren't NPCs in a rumor cycle, they're real people with real incentives, and when ego, money, and incentives collide, someone always overplays their hand. It feels more and more like Jake believed his own myth too deeply. People ask why Anthony Joshua matters so much here. And that question alone shows some fans still don't get it, because Joshua isn't just a boxer. He's a control variable. The moment you remove narrative training wheels. When he stepped in and treated Jake like just another opponent, the illusion didn't wobble, it shattered, and shattered things cut everyone nearby. I don't buy the idea that Joshua was there to play along for a second, because fighters like AJ don't build legacies on charity rounds. If Eddie Hearn sounded defensive afterward, it's because promoters understand optics. And the image of one fighter breaking another man's jaw while the internet screams fix is a PR nightmare even if everything is legitimate. That tension alone shows how toxic the environment had become. Mike Tyson's name still hangs over this like a ghost that won't go quiet, because scripted or not, carried or not, that fight permanently changed the temperature. Once fans start rewatching bouts like crime scenes instead of highlights, you've already lost something you can't get back. Trust, And Jake Paul burned through that trust faster than almost anyone I've seen. The PED conversation matters too, no matter how uncomfortable people act about it, because combat sports don't run on politeness, they run on bodies and damage. Sudden size without speed loss, fast recovery, selective testing while loudly claiming cleanliness doesn't prove guilt, but it invites suspicion, and suspicion is gasoline when everything else is already on fire. Logan Paul being pulled into this matters more than people admit, because he spent years rebuilding his image carefully, and the idea that his brother's choices could drag heat back onto him has to be terrifying. Family and business don't mix cleanly when money starts shaking. Nikki Sabadarian's interviews keep circling in my head because they sound like someone arguing legality while ignoring the mood of the room. And vibes matter, especially when fans, fighters, and regulators are all side-eyeing the same product. You can be legally clean and culturally finished at the same time. The silence from parts of boxing media doesn't sit right either. The same voices happy to cash checks suddenly going quiet when questions sharpen. Silence isn't neutral, it's self-preservation. And it makes you wonder who knew what and when, and whose praying old messages never surface. As a fan, because I love combat sports too much to pretend otherwise, this feels like watching a sport I care about get exploited because boxing already struggles with credibility. When spectacle overtakes substance, backlash is inevitable, especially when reality punches back with interest. I don't think Jake Paul is evil. I think he's ambitious, obsessive, addicted to momentum, and surrounded by people who benefit from telling him he's unstoppable, and that combination has wrecked smarter men. When you stop hearing no, you stop preparing for consequences, and consequences don't announce themselves politely. The FBI raid is a psychological point of no return regardless of what happens legally, because you can spin losses and injuries, but you can't unsee agents walking through your home with evidence. Every sponsor, partner, and future opponent recalculates when they see that, and recalculation is where careers quietly die. Anthony Joshua probably sleeps fine through all of this, and that contrast says everything. He showed up, fought, won, and moved on, while Jake Paul is stuck defending his entire past at once. And when you're arguing about yesterday, you can't build tomorrow, because the sport moves forward whether you're ready or not. What worries me isn't that this is over, it's that it isn't, because investigations don't rush, they spread, and spreading means more phones, more emails, more uncomfortable conversations. If even one unexpected name surfaces, this shifts from influencer scandal to industry reckoning, and boxing has never handled those well. I can't shake the feeling we're one leak away from a completely different story, one that reframes the Tyson fight, the matchmaking, the drama, all of it. And when that happens, people will pretend they always knew, always suspected, always felt uneasy. But right now, most are still hedging.